This time around, Leo didn't beg his mother to put him in the same homeroom as Claire Miller. He didn't spend every spare moment tutoring her just so they could get into the same college. And he certainly didn't buy a house near campus with his own money just to make it easier for her to move her disabled grandfather in with them. It was May, and college application deadlines were looming. She'd set her heart on UC Santa Barbara, a school right by the ocean. Leo applied to Columbia, miles away in New York City. In his first life, she was warm and gracious to everyone but him. All she ever gave him was the cold shoulder. So this time, all Leo wanted was for them to be strangers, to live their own separate lives. But years later, when Leo was giving a guest lecture at UCSB as a distinguished professor, she was there as a faculty guest, sitting right beside him on the stage. The moment she looked at him, her eyes turned red. "Leo," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why did you give up on me, Leo? What's on your mind? You want to talk?" Leo snapped back to the present at the dinner table. His mother placed a piece of broccoli on Claire's plate, her expression gentle. Leo's head is spinning. What was his mom doing here? Then Leo noticed the details. The chipped ceramic mug on the table, a faded promotional item from the bicentennial, the wall calendar frozen on May. This was the day Leo had begged his mom to pull strings and get him into Claire's class. Had Leo been reborn? Seeing him zoned out, Leo's mom waved a hand in front of his face. "Daydreaming again? What did you want to talk to me about? What did Leo say last time?" "Mom, Claire's struggling in calculus. If Leo's in her class, Leo can help her more." And what was the result? Leo got his wish. They were even assigned seats next to each other. But in her journal, which the teacher read aloud to his mother, she wrote that Leo was a persistent creep who wouldn't leave her alone. The memory of the fallout made Leo shudder. Leo shook his head and shoveled a forkful of mashed potatoes into his mouth. Nothing important, just thinking Leo's in the mood for lasagna tomorrow, the kind with extra cheese. His mother blinked, then a smile spread across her face. "Of course, sweetie. Leo's mom will pick up everything we need in the morning." Across the table, Claire set down her fork, her brow furrowed. She was probably trying to figure out what Leo's angle was. Last time, Leo pulled out all the stops to get close to her, dropping his eraser by her feet on purpose, casually passing her his notes in the hall, even secretly emptying all the trash cans in the classroom when it was her turn for cleanup duty. Thinking back on it now, Leo was an idiot. "What are you planning now, Leo?" The second Leo finished eating, Claire cornered him by the sink. She was wearing a faded sundress, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, her eyes were wide like a spooked kitten's. "What are you talking about?" Leo said, scrubbing a plate without looking up. "You've always said Leo was annoying, that Leo was always making up excuses to be around you. So fine, Leo'll stop." Claire took a step forward, then hesitated. "What's the catch? Do you think that just because my dad's gone, I'm completely dependent on your family? Let me tell you, Claire," Leo cut her off, tossing the sponge into the sink. "My dad and your dad were brothers in arms. They saved each other's lives in Vietnam." Saying something like that is a slap in his face. Leo softened his tone. "And look, Leo gets it now. Leo was a kid. Leo thought if Leo was just nice enough to you, you'd eventually like Leo back. Leo sees now that you don't. There's no point in forcing it." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The confusion in her eyes spread like spilled ink. Leo guessed it made sense. In their first life, Leo was like gum on her shoe, impossible to get rid of. This sudden calm detachment would throw anyone for a loop. Leo turned and went into his bedroom, glancing back at her just before he closed the door. She was still standing there, twisting the hem of her dress. The light from the street lamp cast shifting shadows across her face. Claire's dad died suddenly. His last wish was for Leo's dad to look after his little girl. Leo's mom, bless her heart, took her in and treated her like her own. But Leo knew that deep down, Claire was always on edge. She saw his family's kindness as pity, as charity. If Leo offered her a piece of candy, she'd stare at it for a full minute, trying to figure out the hidden agenda. In his first life, Leo'd kill himself trying to prove it wasn't pity. Leo saved her a seat in the library, stood up to the guys who bullied her, and even spent a whole afternoon at her dad's grave on the anniversary of his death, just so she wouldn't have to be alone. And what did Leo get for it? Leo overheard her telling someone, "Leo's only nice to me so he can look like a saint." On his nightstand, a framed photo from elementary school showed the two of them. She stood beside Leo, lips pressed into a thin, serious line, while Leo grinned so wide you could see his molars. Back then, Leo was so sure Leo was going to marry her someday. Now, living this life again, those vows felt like a joke. The cicadas outside buzzed louder and louder. Suddenly, a soft knock came from the other side of Leo's door. Claire's voice was muffled. "Leo, come out. Are you still mad about the pen? The one you gave me that I gave to someone else. I already told you it wasn't on purpose." Leo leaned against the door, silent, listening as her voice trailed off into a nearly inaudible sigh. The debts of the last life could stay there. She had her path, and it was time Leo found his. You can't spend your whole life pouring everything you have into someone who will never love you back. The desk lamp was bright. Leo picked up a pen and in a margin of his notebook wrote a single line. "May we each find our own happiness, with no more strings attached." The next morning, Leo was up before his alarm. Usually, Leo'd be in the kitchen helping Mom, waiting to walk to school with Claire. She'd always complain, "It's so embarrassing being seen with you," but Leo'd still wait for her at the corner, pretending it was a coincidence. Not today. Leo grabbed a piece of toast and headed out. The leaves on the old maple tree at the end of the street were a vibrant green, the sunlight dappling the pavement. For a second, Leo felt a wave of déjà vu. In his first life, at this exact moment, Leo was pacing under her window, clutching a pack of strawberry starbursts Leo bought for her. "Leo, you didn't wait for Claire?" Gus clapped Leo on the shoulder as he walked into homeroom, a half-eaten donut in his mouth. "Hey, Mrs. Davidson asked me yesterday if your mom was going to talk to her about switching her class." "What happened?" Leo dropped his backpack on his desk and pulled out a textbook. "Not happening." "What?" Gus almost dropped his donut. "Dude, you were obsessed with being in her class. You said sitting behind her was the perfect strategy for Operation Win Claire's heart." "What changed?" Leo shrugged, flipping open his literature book. Leo had a crush on her, wanted to be close. Leo doesn't anymore, so what's the point? Just as Leo said it, a flash of blue appeared in the doorway. It was Claire, her canvas bag slung over her shoulder, peering into their classroom. She must have heard Leo, because she froze. Her face was blank, but the hand gripping her bag strap tightened until her knuckles went white. Leo didn't look at her. Leo just stared down at his book. It used to be that a single glance from her could make Leo's whole day. Now the air just felt lighter without the weight of her attention. She stood there for a few seconds, then turned and walked away, her ponytail swinging behind her. Gus nudged Leo. "Dude, look. Claire heard you." She looked totally wrecked. "Did you two really have a falling out?" "Nothing to fall out from. We were never together." Leo didn't feel like explaining. Just then, their teacher walked in, carrying a stack of forms. "All right, everyone. These are your preliminary college interest forms. Take them home, talk them over with your parents, and bring them back next week." As the teacher talked, Leo stared at the line for UC Santa Barbara. His mind buzzed. In his first life, Claire and Leo had sat under the big oak tree on the athletic field. She'd use a stick to draw waves in the dirt. "Leo, come with me to California," she'd said. "Leo, here's the beaches there are amazing." Leo's heart had hammered in his chest. "Leo will," Leo promised. "Leo'll go with you." They both applied to UCSB. Then she turned around and told her friends Leo was a pathetic loser for following her there. "How pathetic is that?" "Hello, Earth to Leo." Gus shoved Leo, pulling him out of the memory. "You're really not applying to UCSB?" Claire told Gus yesterday she's dead set on going. "Nope. Leo's applying to Columbia." Leo took a pen and drew a thick line under Columbia University. "New York is great. Less humid." The day passed in a buzz of excited chatter about the future. The moment the final bell rang, Leo grabbed his bike and bolted. Just as Leo left the school gates, Leo heard someone call his name. "Leo." Leo turned. Claire was jogging to catch up, a sheen of sweat on her forehead. "Leo, what's up?" She caught her breath, her fingers twisting the strap of her bag. Her eyes darted around. Were you mad at Claire today?" "Leo's not mad." "Then why? Why did you say you don't like Claire anymore?" And the class changed. "Leo thought you always wanted Claire," Leo interrupted. "What do you really want?" She looked up, startled, her eyes wide. Leo didn't get what she was thinking, so Leo figured Leo might as well lay it all out. Before, when Leo was chasing you, you couldn't stand it. Now that Leo's stopped, You're chasing Leo down asking why. You always wanted Leo to leave you alone, right? Well, you got your wish. So why do you suddenly seem so bothered by it? Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. A slow blush crept up her neck. She'd only ever spoken to Leo with a cold glare or a tone of annoyance. Leo'd never seen her so tongue-tied. Finally, she looked down, kicking at a loose pebble on the ground. I didn't. I just think it's weird. Nothing weird about it. Leo doesn't have time for this. Leo's heading home. Leo's mom's waiting for Leo to help make lasagna. With that, Leo pushed off on his bike and rode away. In the small mirror on his handlebars, Leo saw her standing there, a shrinking blue in the distance. The wind felt cool on Leo's face. If only Leo had been this decisive in his first life, Leo could have saved himself so much pain. Leo stopped at the corner store on the way home and bought a pack of Starbursts. Leo unwrapped an orange one and popped it in his mouth. It was sweet, almost cloying. Leo always used to buy strawberry, her favorite. Today, Leo just grabbed a random pack. It wasn't so bad. When Leo got home, Mom was mixing the ricotta filling. You're back. Go wash your hands. You can help Leo's mom with the noodles, okay? Leo will, Leo said, dropping his bag on the couch. Claire's bedroom door was shut. The college form was still on the table, the words Columbia University standing out in bold. Perfect. It was settled. As for her, she had her ocean, and Leo had his city. From now on, they'd walk their own paths, and that was just fine. Once Leo stopped orbiting Claire, her behavior got stranger and stranger. She used to avoid Leo like the plague, her eyes filled with impatience. Now she was always hovering at the edge of Leo's vision, her gaze sticking to Leo like glue. Gus poked Leo in the ribs. Leo, the way Claire looks at you now, it's like she's seen a ghost. Leo knew exactly what was going on, but Leo couldn't be bothered to engage. They weren't kids anymore. Was Leo really supposed to go back to offering up his heart just to have it frozen over? The day before they had to turn in their final applications, Claire cornered Leo at his desk right after the bell. The cuffs of her school jacket were unevenly rolled, and she was twisting the hem, just like she had on Leo's bedroom door. Leo, where are you applying? Leo stuffed a textbook into his backpack, not looking up. Why do you ask? She paused, as if chewing on the words before swallowing them. Just curious. Leo zipped his bag shut. Where Leo applies doesn't have anything to do with you, does it? As the words left Leo's mouth, Leo saw her flinch. Her eyes, which always held a cool distance, were suddenly clouded over, filled with disappointment. Her lips parted, but all that came out was a soft, "Oh." She turned away, her steps unsteady. It used to be that one kind look from her could make Leo happy for a week. Now all Leo felt was relief. A person has to learn to cut their own ropes. The day they turned in their forms, the classroom was a chaotic mess. Claire must have found out Leo's choice from someone, because she ran into their room, her forehead slick with sweat, strands of hair stuck to her face. Her voice was on the verge of tears, her eyes as red as a rabbit's. Leo, you applied to Columbia? The whole class turned to look at them. Leo frowned. So what if Leo did? You promised you'd come with me to California, to see the ocean. She took a step closer, her voice trembling. Under the oak tree, you promised you'd come with me. A flash of the first life seared through Leo's mind. Her sitting under the tree drawing waves in the dirt, the sun catching the highlights in her hair. But then Leo remembered her telling people Leo was just a pathetic stalker. What did their promises even mean? Claire, Leo said, his voice calm as Leo met her gaze. That was before. What about before? You said you like me, that we'd go to the same school. Why did you change? Because Leo doesn't like you anymore. The words were like a knife, and they hurt Leo to say them, but Leo knew everything had to be laid bare. Leo doesn't like you anymore. You going to UCSB is your choice. Leo going to Columbia is Leo's choice. We should have gone our separate ways a long time ago. Leo had never spoken to her so harshly. She froze, tears streaming down her face, unable to say a word. She had always been so careful to maintain her pride around Leo, to never show weakness. But now, seeing her cry so helplessly, Leo's heart felt like a stone, not a single crack of sympathy. Some knots just have to be cut. Dinner that night was silent. Claire kept her head down, picking at her food, her eyes still puffy. Leo's mom put a piece of chicken on her plate, and she whispered, "Thank you, Sarah." her voice hoarse. After she went to her room, Mom put down her fork and sighed. Are you two fighting? Leo pushed his plate away. We're not fighting. No. Leo's mom looked at Leo pointedly. She's been walking around like a zombie for days. You two used to walk home together. Now you don't even speak. What's going on? Leo stared at the faded logo on his bicentennial mug. Nothing. Leo just figured things out. Leo used to chase her, thinking if Leo was just nice enough she'd like Leo back, but she always thought Leo had some ulterior motive. Leo's tired, Mom. Mom was quiet for a moment, then let out a long sigh. Her dad died young, Leo. She's insecure. She doesn't mean to be hurtful, but you two grew up together. Childhood history doesn't pay the bills. Leo cut in. Leo used to think she was the only one for Leo. Not anymore. She's going to California. Leo's going to New York. Leo wants the distance. Leo wants them to have their own lives. Leo's mom didn't say anything else, but her eyes were full of a sad understanding. I know how much you cared. If it's not meant to be, Leo's mom won't push it. Leo's mom doesn't want Leo to have any regrets. Leo won't, Mom. The only thing Leo regrets is how stupid Leo was before. This is better. The cicadas buzzed outside, but the house was still. Mom ladled some soup into Leo's bowl and left it at that. Leo knew she was hurting. She'd always treated Claire like her own daughter and had even hoped she'd be her daughter-in-law one day. In Leo's first life, she was the one who pushed them together. But Leo has to choose his own path, and once Leo does, there's no turning back. The yellow glow of the street lamp stretched the tree shadows long across the lawn. Looking at the words Columbia University on his application form, Leo's mind had never felt so clear. She had her ocean, Leo had his city, and this time, that's how it was going to be. From the day Leo decided to draw a line in the sand with Claire, they became two parallel lines, never to cross again. They weren't in the same class, and Leo was consumed by studying for the SATs, leaving early and coming home late. Leo's life was a fortress built of textbooks and practice exams. Once Gus mentioned he saw Claire looking into their classroom from the hallway, Leo just turned a page, not giving a second thought. Leo's only goal was Columbia. The day the exams were over, Leo threw a stack of review books onto his bed and collapsed, utterly exhausted. Leo's mother came in with a plate of sliced watermelon. Claire went to visit her grandpa as soon as her tests were done. She didn't say goodbye. Oh, Leo said, grabbing a slice. Leo didn't ask anything else. Her absence felt like a relief, a much-needed break in a tension that had defined their relationship. The days waiting for acceptance letters were agonizingly long. One afternoon, Leo was coming back from a run when a mailman handed Leo a thick manila envelope. The moment Leo tore it open, the words Columbia University in elegant, embossed lettering leaped out at Leo. A wave of pure joy washed over Leo. All those years of work had finally paid off. Just then, Leo heard the squeak of a bicycle at the end of the driveway. Leo looked up and saw Claire. She was thinner, her skin tanned from the sun, and she was holding a cloth bag. Her eyes fell on the envelope in Leo's hand, catching a glimpse of the crimson-lined acceptance letter inside. Her own eyes immediately turned red. She hesitated, then walked toward Leo, scuffing the toe of her sneaker on the pavement. Her voice trembled. Leo, you really got into Columbia? Leo nodded, folding the letter and tucking it into his pocket. Suddenly, she clutched her bag, her knuckles turning white, as if she were summoning every ounce of courage she possessed. I have something to tell you. The cicadas droned on, tireless in the summer heat. The air was thick and heavy. Leo waited quietly for her to speak. Before, Leo always thought you were so annoying, she began, her head bowed, her voice choked with a sob. When you tutored me, saved me seats, I just thought you were being pushy. But then you stopped. You stopped paying attention to me, and I realized. She lifted her head abruptly, her eyes swimming with tears. I realized I don't hate you, Leo. I like you. Leo didn't understand my own feelings back then. It wasn't until you were really gone that Leo felt like a part of Leo was missing. It was the first time she had ever confessed her feelings to Leo. Leo had imagined this scene 1,000 times, but now that it was actually happening, Leo felt strangely calm, as if Leo were listening to someone else's story. Seeing Leo's silence, she took an urgent step forward. Can you give Leo another chance? Just one. Leo promises Leo'll be good to you, Leo. Claire, Leo interrupted, shaking his head gently. It's too late. How can it be too late? Tears streamed down her face. You used to love me more than anything. You said you'd marry me, that you'd go with me to California. How can you just give up? Leo didn't answer. Leo just looked at her. In Leo's mind, flashes of their first life appeared. Their wedding, their children, and the chilling emptiness of a life with someone who never truly loved Leo. Leo saw how she'd been forced into every step, how she refused to even listen to Leo, and how after a few years of marriage, she found someone she actually loved. Leo remembered the smiles and tenderness she gave him, things she never once gave Leo. Leo couldn't risk his entire life again on this single, fleeting moment of her regret. Leo managed a small, sad smile. What's past is past. Leo turned to go inside, ignoring her sobs. Leo paused at the door and looked back one last time. Claire, not everything can go back to the way it was just because one person regrets it or tries to fix it. Just like in Leo's first life, Leo had laid his heart at her feet, and she had never once valued it. Some mistakes are forever. Leo pushed open the door. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the acceptance letter on the table. The Columbia University crest seemed to glow. This was the path Leo had chosen for himself. Even without her, Leo had to walk it with conviction. Behind Leo, her quiet weeping and her late-coming affection would eventually fade, just like the sound of the cicadas in the summer wind. Leo left Claire standing alone in the driveway, her sobs fading behind Leo. Leo knew in that moment that the fragile thread between them had finally snapped for good. In the weeks that followed, Leo threw himself into preparing for Columbia. While packing, Leo stumbled upon an old journal. Tucked inside was a slip of paper with a math problem she had once helped Leo solve. Seeing her familiar handwriting, a wave of old feelings, the crush, the hurt, washed over Leo, but Leo quickly pushed it away, placed the note back in the journal, and shoved it deep into a drawer. It was time for a new chapter. The day Leo left for New York, Leo's mother's eyes were red as she fussed over Leo, telling Leo to take care of himself. Claire was there too, standing at a distance, watching Leo say goodbye to his mom. Her expression was a complicated mix of longing, regret, and helplessness. Leo gave her a small nod, a final farewell, then turned and boarded the train. At Columbia, the new environment swept Leo up immediately. Leo's schedule was packed with classes, and the campus was buzzing with clubs and activities. At a meeting for the Literary Society, Leo met a girl named Chloe. She had a bright, outgoing personality, a smile that revealed two small dimples, and a unique passion for literature. They started spending more and more time together, discussing poetry and novels. One evening, she asked Leo to go for a walk by the lake on campus. The moonlight shimmered on the water. She suddenly stopped and looked up at Leo, her eyes soft with an unmistakable affection. Leo, Chloe's been trying to figure out how Chloe feels about you for a while now. Then yesterday, when you leaned in close to show Chloe that line in the book, Chloe knew. Chloe really likes you. She took a breath. Will you be Chloe's boyfriend? Leo looked into her sincere eyes, his heart doing a little flip. For a strange moment, Leo thought of Claire, of all that wasted time and heartache. But Chloe, standing right here, was so real and so wonderful. The light reflected in her eyes made Leo want to believe in love again. After a moment's hesitation, Leo gently took her hand. Leo likes you too. In that instant, the moonlight seemed to grow even softer. Life, however, is always full of surprises. When Leo went home for winter break, Leo heard that Claire was sick, very sick. Leo's mom doesn't know what's wrong with that girl. Leo's mother sighed. Ever since you left, she's just had no spirit. Now this. It's just pitiful to see. Leo frowned. Though his feelings were long gone, they hadn't known each other for years, and Leo's dad had made a promise. The least Leo could do was check on her. Leo bought some fruit and went to her house. She was lying in bed, her face pale. When she saw Leo, her eyes lit up for a second before dimming again. You came. Leo put the fruit on her nightstand and nodded. Leo heard you were sick, wanted to see how you were doing. They made small talk for a few minutes, the air thick with awkwardness. As Leo was about to leave, she spoke up suddenly. Leo, Claire doesn't blame you. Claire just regrets. Claire regrets how stupid Claire was. A pang of sadness hit Leo. Leo wanted to say something comforting, but Leo didn't know where to start. In the end, all Leo could manage was, "Take care of yourself," before quickly leaving. Back home, Chloe called. Sensing Leo was in a low mood, she spoke to Leo with her usual gentle warmth. After they hung up, Leo stared out the night sky, his mind a jumble of thoughts. Claire's regret made Leo sad for what they both went through, but there was no turning back time. They were destined for different paths. Chloe's arrival in Leo's life was like a beam of light, illuminating Leo's new reality. Leo knew with absolute certainty that cherishing the person right in front of Leo was the best way to honor the future. As time went on, Leo's relationship with Chloe deepened. Leo's studies became all-consuming. Leo barely had time to go home. The year Leo was about to graduate, one of Leo's professors saw Leo's potential and encouraged Leo to stay on for graduate school. Leo accepted. After that, life hit fast forward. The next 5 years were a blur. Leo went from a master's student to a PhD candidate, Leo's spot at the lectern moving from a corner of the classroom to the very center. The stacks of papers on Leo's desk grew taller than Leo's head, and Leo's drawers were filled with throat lozenges Chloe bought for Leo. After she graduated, she got a job at a publishing house, and they rented an apartment in the faculty housing complex with a small balcony. She filled it with her favorite rose bushes. Life felt sweet and solid, steeped in a quiet happiness. Occasionally, high school friends would pass through New York on business. They'd meet up at some small restaurant, and over beers, someone would inevitably bring up Claire. "Heard she went back to our old high school to teach after graduation," Gus said, his words muffled by a mouthful of peanuts. "Then she quit and rented a place near UCSB, moved her grandpa out there with her." Someone else chimed in. "She came to the reunion a couple of years ago. Looked nice, but quiet. Kept asking about you, if you were doing okay in New York, if you had a girlfriend." Leo took a long swallow of beer, a cool trail running down his throat. Outside, the autumn leaves of New York were a brilliant, almost blinding gold. A few years ago, hearing this would have sent Leo's mind reeling. Now it was like listening to a story about someone Leo used to know. It was all strangely peaceful. Chloe placed a piece of fish on Leo's plate, her fingers brushing against the back of his hand. Leo smiled at her, and she understood immediately, changing the subject to a new book of poetry her publishing house was releasing. Claire's name was like a faded postage stamp, permanently affixed to the summer of. It was impossible to remove, but it no longer stirred a single ripple inside Leo. Leo had his lesson plans, his students, and the sound of Chloe humming as she hung laundry on the balcony. These real, tangible moments had filled all the empty spaces of the past. Then, beepers started going off all over the city. Leo was in the bathroom one morning brushing his teeth when Chloe ran in, holding a small black box. "Leo, your beeper's going off." The department had just issued them. His number had only been active for a few days. Leo wiped his mouth and leaned over. A string of numbers glowed on the tiny screen, followed by a short typed message, "How are you?" There was no name. Chloe peered over his shoulder. "Who's that?" Leo stared at the words. For a split second, his heart gave a strange little thump, then settled back into its steady rhythm. Outside, sparrows hopped along the clothesline. The scent of Chloe's shampoo mingled with the mint of his toothpaste. "Leo has no idea," Leo said, tucking the beeper into his pocket and taking the towel she offered. "Probably a wrong number." Chloe didn't press it. She went back to the kitchen to heat up some milk. Leo looked at himself in the mirror. There were a few new, barely noticeable gray hairs at his temples. His eyes looked calmer, more settled than they had in his youth. The girl who had stood before Leo in the spring of, her eyes red as she asked, "Why'd you give up on Leo?" was now, 9 years later, knocking on the door of his life with an anonymous digital message. But what did it matter? Leo thought of the O-box Chloe had brought him at the library last week. Leo thought of ice skating at Rockefeller Center last winter, how she'd laughed so hard she cried when she fell into his arms. Leo thought of his doctoral dissertation open on his desk, and the name Leo had written on the acknowledgement page, Chloe. These small, warm moments were like layers of a cocoon, wrapping his heart up tight and safe. The beeper chirped again, the same message repeated. Leo walked out onto the balcony and pinched off a wilting rose. "Leo, the milk's ready." Chloe called from the kitchen. "Leo's coming," Leo answered. Leo took the beeper from his pocket and set it down on the balcony railing. The sun warmed the black plastic, and the words on the screen blurred in the bright light. Some questions don't need an answer. Some pasts are better left behind. The ocean in California never felt the imprint of Leo's footsteps, but the snow in New York had already covered every path Chloe and Leo had walked together. As for the name hidden behind that beeper message, Leo would let it dissolve into the New York winds of. Leo had a new sunrise to chase and a new story to write. Leo never thought Claire's persistence would bring her all the way to New York. Leo was in Atlanta for a conference when Leo got the call from a colleague. His voice was laced with gossip. "Leo, that high school friend of yours, Claire Miller, she came by the university yesterday looking for you. Stood outside the admin building all afternoon." Leo held the phone to his ear, gazing out the hotel window at the city lights. Leo felt nothing but a flicker of confusion. "Okay, thanks for letting Leo know. You're not going to call her back?" he pressed. She looked pretty worn out, said she came all the way from California. "Leo's out of town," Leo cut him off. Besides, what could she possibly want from Leo after all these years? Claire's name was like a rusty nail. When mentioned, it might poke a little, but couldn't cause any real damage. Leo's life with Chloe was like a set of finely tuned gears, turning smoothly forward with no room for a foreign object to jam the works. But life rarely sticks to the plan. 2 weeks later, the dean called Leo into his office and tossed an invitation onto his desk. "UCSB is hosting an academic symposium next month. The university wants you to be the keynote speaker." Leo stared at the words, University of Santa Barbara. Leo's heart gave a strange, anxious lurch. Leo had a bad feeling about this. "Sir, Leo has a major project deadline coming up. Could someone else possibly?" "You're busy." Leo gets it, the dean interrupted, tapping his finger on a desk. "But you're one of our most distinguished young faculty members. This is about representing Columbia. We can't lose face. Your flight and hotel are already booked." Defeated, Leo accepted the arrangement. Walking out of his office, the sun was so bright it made Leo wince. Leo knew what Leo was afraid of that ocean, of those old ghosts swept away by the wind, and most of all, afraid of a reunion Leo knew was inevitable. That night, Leo put the invitation on the dining table. Chloe was arranging flowers in a vase. "UCSB invited Leo to give a talk," Leo said. "Next month." Chloe looked up, a red rose hovering in her hand. "To California?" "Leo's going," Leo said. Leo took a deep breath and laid it all out for her. The application forms from Claire's tears, the anonymous beeper message. It was like spreading out an old, yellow newspaper. "She came to New York looking for Leo a few weeks ago." Leo's worried. Chloe put down her shears and came over, taking Leo's hand. Her fingers were warm, and her eyes held no trace of resentment, only a calm understanding. "Chloe wants to go with you?" "Leo would appreciate it if you came," Leo said, his voice low. "You idiot, Chloe trusts you." She smiled and squeezed his hand. "Of course Chloe will go with you. We can think of it as a research trip to see how a California ocean compares to a New York snowstorm." The day of the lecture, the auditorium at UCSB was packed. Leo stood at the podium in his suit, and as his eyes scanned the crowd, Leo saw a familiar figure in the front row, Claire. She was wearing a pale blue dress, her hair pinned up, with light makeup that couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. The name card in front of her read, "Guest Panelist." Leo's stomach dropped. Of course. Halfway through Leo's speech, the moderator invited the panelists to the stage. As Claire walked up, her dress rustling, her shoulders were trembling slightly. The flashbulbs from the press photographers went off like a strobe light, but her eyes were locked on Leo, her lips quivering as if years of unsaid words were about to burst out. During the Q&A, after a student had asked a question, Claire suddenly grabbed the microphone. Her voice, amplified through the speakers, was thick with suppressed sobs. "Professor Hayes." The entire hall went silent. Leo tightened his grip on his own microphone. From her seat in the front row, Chloe gave Leo a subtle, encouraging nod. "Leo, do you remember?" Claire's tears fell, hitting the microphone with a soft thud. "You said you'd come with Claire to see the ocean. Why'd you give up on Leo?" Years of history collapsed in that single moment. A murmur went through the audience. The camera flashes intensified. Leo looked at her tear-streaked face, and all the memories Leo had deliberately buried, the waves drawn in the dirt, The red ink on the application forms, the cold glow of the beeper screen, surfaced with painful clarity. But Leo wasn't the flustered boy from 3 decades ago. Leo turned to face her directly, and by extension, to face the pair of calm, steady eyes watching Leo from the audience. "Ms. Miller," Leo heard his own voice say, as smooth and steady as a frozen lake in a New York winter. "A very long time ago, Leo did want to see the ocean with you." Her tears flowed faster. Leo learned something. Leo continued, his gaze moving past her, locking with Chloe's. She was smiling at Leo, holding a pin Leo had given her for their anniversary. Leo learned that some people are for watching the ocean with, and some people are for waiting for the snow with. And Leo has already found the person Leo wants to wait for the snow with in New York. The auditorium was so quiet you could hear the gentle coastal breeze outside. Claire stood frozen, microphone in hand, tears rolling down her cheeks, but she couldn't ask why again. Leo gave her a final polite nod and turned back to his lecture. It was as if her sudden, dramatic confession was nothing more than a grain of sand blown in by the sea breeze, something that, over time, a new life would smooth into an irrelevant, painless pearl. At the reception dinner that evening, Claire was a nose-how. Chloe deflected a few toasts on Leo's behalf, her fingertips resting lightly on the back of his hand the whole time. As they walked out of the banquet hall, the salty, damp air of the Pacific hit them. For a moment, Leo thought back to that long-ago summer night, clutching his college applications. "Any regrets?" Chloe asked, looking up at Leo. The street lights shattered into stars in her eyes. Leo shook his head and pulled a small seashell from his pocket. Leo found it on the beach that morning. It had a natural crack down the middle, like a line etched by time onto a heart. Leo used to think this ocean was Leo's biggest regret. Now Leo understands that all the wrong turns were just leading Leo to the view Leo was meant to see. Chloe smiled and linked her arm through Leo's. They walked slowly along the coastal road. Behind them, the city lights were winking out one by one. Ahead of them was the dark sky, in the direction of New York. Leo's beeper vibrated in his pocket. It was a message from Gus. Claire quit her job, said she's moving to Appalachia to teach. Leo glanced at it and put the beeper away. The sound of the waves grew louder, as if bidding a final farewell on someone's behalf. Chloe stopped walking and pulled a small box from her purse. Inside was a silver tie clip etched with the shape of a maple leaf. "An early anniversary gift," she said, standing on her toes to fix it to Leo's tie. "From now on, you're only allowed to watch New York snow with Chloe." Leo looked down at the sea breeze in her hair and suddenly thought of Claire crying all those years ago, asking, "Why did you give up on Leo?" Leo didn't understand it then, but Leo finally did now. Not every wave is worth chasing, and not every vigil requires an answer. The ocean was behind Leo, the snow was ahead. Leo squeezed Chloe's hand, and they walked on, crushing the moonlight under their feet. As for the faint blue shadow disappearing into the Appalachian Mountains, Leo hoped she would find her own peace under a different sky, reconciling with her own belated epiphanies. After all, the best ending in this world isn't a reunion. It's when two people on their own separate paths finally become whole.